Hello, everyone. This is Chris, and you're listening to One Cross Radio, and we're back. Uh, Last episode we did a megasode just because of some things going on at the house, and as I'm transitioning jobs and all that. Um, so I'm actually recording before I've started on my new job, but I just had some time and I wanted to record, and also been super anxious, so trying to repurpose that energy. Anyways, today's episode is inspired by um, I recently restarted playing through a Game Boy emulator, Pokemon Crystal. And that playthrough in turn was inspired by a brief conversation Christian and I were having on the radio arcade about Pokemon Silver and Gold. So I thought, you know what? Let's just do an episode about Pokemon, Pokemon Gold, Silver and Gold, and to a degree Crystal, Gen 2 of the Pokemon games. My mom can attest to this. I don't know why you'd ask her, but she can. And shout out to my mom, Wendy. She's amazing. Um, I was of course, in late '99, late '98, early '99, Pokemania was sweeping the North American and European nations. It had been in Japan for a while, but it was really gaining traction over here. And I've talked about Pokemon in the past. I've done episodes about one of the movies and some of the differences, and one of the first guest appearances that I ever got to do was talking about the Pokemon Origins anime with Awesome Possum Bex from Redeemed Otaku. So Pokemon is something I've been into. Not as much as other franchises, but I've gotten nostalgia for and I've been into and enjoyed since I was like about 9 or 10 years old. Um, and Silver and Gold are friggin' dope. Like I'm not gonna bury the lead. They're friggin' dope games. Crystal is a dope game. And I'll get into it in a second, but like Pokemania was sweeping, as I like to call it. It was running wild. We had the card games come out, and like there's a bit of a Pokesance going on right now. Um, but there we had the card game drop, and then of course the Game Boy games. In Japan they were red and green. Over here it was red and blue. Why, I'm not sure, but it does make sense to me that it's red and blue over red and green. Although of course green had Venusaur on the cover, blue had Blastoise, and then red straight up just had Charizard. Um, and then we got that insanely popular anime, the dub of varying quality, but enjoyable for what it is. I prefer subs over dubs, but anyways. Um, and so the game, like you had the card game, you had the the Game Boy games, and then you had the oh, sorry. Yep, sorry about that. Yeah, you had the card game, you had the Game Boy game, and then you had the show. Then of course, naturally, as it would progress as these franchises do, you got the movie. Um so the movie dropped, um and I'm going to touch on a little bit of trivia in a second, just because it's kind of cool. Um, so the movie dropped, and then we get the games. We come to the title of this episode, Pokemon Gold and Silver, and Crystal. Um, Also, in between that time, I just don't have the date in front of me. You got the re kind of the updated version of Red and Blue or Red and Green and Pokemon Yellow, where it was more reflecting the anime. So you had Pikachu, Team Rocket, characters specifically looked like Jesse and James, and you'd encounter them frequently throughout the game. Um, yeah, so you got that, and that yellow kind of serves as a model a bit for what you get with Crystal, where it's just kind of like Gen 2.5, where it's an update of what happened before. Anyways, so you get to Pokemon Gold and Silver, and these games are phenomenal, and Crystal is all just as phenomenal. I'm enjoying it thoroughly on my replay through. So let me see here. I'm just trying to pull up the dates. So the games were originally supposed to come out in Japan. They were advertised in late 97, like coming late 97. Um, but there were delays, and the Nintendo actually issued a public apology, um, where they claimed that the developers were just worn out, but they were fully committed to the project, and they required more time to expand and improve the games further. Um, so it was originally supposed to come out in late '97. They were instead dropped in uh, late '99. Um, sorry, in late 99 in Japan. North America, they were dropped in October of 2000. It was then dropped in April, Europe. It was dropped in Europe in April of 2001, and then South Korea finally in April of 2002, not 2022, as I typoed in my notes. Um, However, we would get some of the preview, like us in North America, we'd actually see some of the Pokemon before we could actually play with them. The Snubble, Meryl, and Donphan all premiered in Pikachu's Adventure, the double feature Pikachu's Adventure, the short attached to the front of Mewtwo Strikes Back. We got that in North America in November of '99. Japan, they got it in July of '98. So they still saw these before the game was released. Um, then as well, we got Ladybug, Lekid, Blossom, Hoot Hoot, Slowking, and my boy Lugia in Pikachu's the short Pikachu Rescues Adventure, which was attached to Pokemon the Movie 2000, aka The Power of One. We got that in July of 2000. So a good through. Nope, I can math. Actually, yeah, no, 3 months before the game debuted, later that year, um, in 2000. But Japan also got it a good. They got it a good. Uh, they got it in July of '99, and so about 4 5 months before the game dropped. Before the game dropped there. That extra time they took um, really shows in the games. Don't get me wrong, red, blue slash green, and yellow um, are really solid games for the Game Boy and a Game Boy emulator that still have their value, and still have their fun. Like, I'm not talking down on them. I still really enjoy replaying those games. But the comparison I would make almost is, if I'm gonna put it to something that's a little more modern, um, it would be almost comparing Arkham Asylum to Arkham City. Arkham Asylum is a dope game in its own right. It is utterly fantastic. It set the stage for all the Batman Arkham games that came afterwards. It set the stage for what people want out of superhero games. Um, like the Arkham Asylum formula led to borderline perfect game of Arkham City, which was unquestionably an inspiration to like the Insomniac Spider-Man game. Um, Red and Blue, I liken to Asylum, Gold and Silver and Crystal, I liken to Arkham City. It took everything that came before and improved on it. It made the world bigger, the runtime longer, more characters, more like you had more gadgets, more gear, more Pokeballs, and a tighter gameplay. There were some, as much as I enjoy those original games, there were some issues that they actually fixed when you got to Gold and Silver. For example, in Red and Blue slash Green, I'm just gonna say Blue from now on. Red, Blue, and Yellow. Like originally, you had your trump card with Psychic Pokemon. They were Psychics are supposed to be weak. They're supposed to be weak, I believe, against at least Bug, if not Bug and Ghost. But there was a glitch, and it was basically like Stan Lee going, "Worry not, true believer." Uh, and the Psychic, even if you were at the same level or not, it could, as the other Pokemon, or even less of a level, it's you're weak against this. Your attacks aren't supposed to have the effects, and it was treating it like types it was strong against, i.e., fighting. Like if you had a team of psychic Pokemon, you could basically walk through the game no challenge, except for the caves where you needed Flash and Zubats and Geodudes were showing up every 2 bloody steps. Um, Silver and Gold eliminate that problem. Now, yes, you beat bug types and ghost types with psychic types? Yes, but you have to have a vast level difference. Like these types, the type balance is much tighter. Also, you're getting they actually introduced two new types in they introduced two new types in Dark, which is exceptionally strong against Psychic, and Steel Pokemon as well. Now, some of that were taking types that were formerly known as Electric and sliding it over, so they were dual types. Looking at Magnemite, Magneton. But then you also got Dark types, which were Murko, Houndoom, I should say. Um, my personal favorite, Umbreon, which was a new Eevee evolution added to the game. So it's a trend that happened in Red and Blue. You would get Eevee who would have 3 evolutions. You would get uh, if the Eevee got Thunderstone, Jolteon, Firestone, Flareon, and then Waterstone, Vaporeon. In Gen 2, instead of, we now have Eevee, normal type. Then you, of course, have the water, electric, and fire types. But then you also got, right now I'm looking at dark type, you got Umbreon, which was dope. Umbreon is a dark type. But it's dope. And, sorry, I'm just brain farting all over the place. And then we also got Espeon as the psychic one. And then it was kind of like, hey, so along with these elements as well, it's almost like the night and day version. Um, Later generations would add in further evolutions, and there's so many evolutions. Eevee is friggin' awesome. Um, Anyways, back to it. So you got the dark type with Umbreon, and when you put Umbreon up against psychic types, you mop the floor with them because darks are strong against psychics. And if you put the psychic up against the dark type, even if you've got like 20 levels on them, your attacks still are negligible at best. It's quite interesting. So moving on. The game also added uh things like Pokegear. a phone system where it was like Professor Elm would call you numerous times. It would actually either be pointless or update the game. Like you're just about to go to the final gym. You're like, sweet, I'm going to go take gym 8. Nah, son, you're getting a call. You got to go free up the radio tower. You could also save money with your mom. Um, you would also get trainers who would call you repeatedly to battle you or give you tips or mention like, "Oh, hey, I just saw this rare Pokemon over here." So phone system isn't one that really got repeated all that much to my knowledge, but it was still a cool addition. Um, some of the other further additions, though, that were dope were night and day and setting to daylight savings time. Um, with that, there would be certain Pokemon in the areas that would only show up during the night or during the day. So it made you want to play the game more. It made you be strategic about when you would play this game. There was no time differential in the original gen of games. Um, you could as well. They introduced the eggs, where that's where you got Togepi, who showed up in the anime first, but it was like, hey, this is where we're going to give you Togepi as a playable character. You get an egg, and then you walk around, and then eventually the egg hatches. You could do breeding. It's the generation of games that introduced gendered Pokemon, and then you could have the two Pokemon reproduce. Um, they give so much in this game. And then not only that, not only that. So you've got your standard 8 gyms, your dungeons, your side quests, a whole new 100 type of Pokemon. So we're going up from 151 to 251. You've got almost 2 title bird characters. Gold, it's Ho-Ho. Silver, it's Lugia. Lugia is dope. Lugia is awesome. Ho-Ho, I want to like more. It's a really cool design, but its type is fire, and don't get me wrong, Ho-Ho's cool, but I already got my boy Moltres, and Moltres is dope, and the legendary birds are dope. You get 3 new legendary types as well. This time they're dogs instead of birds. In Entei, Suicune, and Raikou. Um, they hop around the game. They're evasive, so it's hard to catch them without Game Shark cheats. There was also a Japanese exclusive legendary grass psychic type, Celebi, which again you couldn't get in North America for the longest time without cheat codes. Um, there was a lot of new Pokemon. And Johto is very different from Kanto. Like, again, to compare it to Arkham Asylum to Arkham City, even though it's familiar to what came before, it's different. Um, Kanto is very city driven. There's a lot of there's a lot of towns, a lot of high-rise buildings, there's a lot of busyness, a lot of department stores and all that. The Johto region seems to be a lot more, to a degree, countryside. Not that there aren't cities, but they're mostly smaller towns. There's a lot of grassy areas, a lot of hills, a lot of places to surf. It's a lot more rustic. Um, and it also feels bigger. Um, man, it's such a good game. I'm having so much fun replaying it. I'm trying to think of what else to say other than it's such a good game. Um, the other really cool thing about it is not only do you get a new setting where it could have been easy, so many games were like, hey, we're going to take the first game, just adjust the setting, rinse and repeat. That wasn't it. It was taking what was there before and improving. And then you get something else. So after you defeat the Elite Four in Kanto, the region from the first game, you unlock Kanto 3 years later. So you get to go around, revisit everywhere you went in the first game, and see where it's at years later. Some of the trainers are different. Some of the gym leaders are now trainers you knew from the first game. Some of the the like Elite Four, I think are, I can't remember who, but they're trainers from they might be trainers or gym leaders from the first game, or their offspring. You get to revisit spots, and now some are shut down. But it's just a really cool feature that wasn't needed, but it was dope because you think you're done, and you're like, oh my gosh, there's so much more. And then, even though you've become the champion, you then go after winning all 8 badges in Kanto. You then go to I can't remember the name of the mountain, but you go to the top of the mountain and you face Red, the trainer that you played as in the Gen 1 of games. Like, after becoming the Pokemon champion, he like basically went off in the wilderness because he had no more fights. He had more opponents to face. And then you go and face him. And it's dope. It's dope. It's so much fun. It takes everything that was there before, builds upon it, improves on it, and gives so many more hours of gameplay. It's for these features that it gives a replayability that, not that the first game isn't replayable, but this gives you more incentive. Again, the night and day factors. The more Pokemon on certain days of the week, areas are open where you can catch certain kinds of Pokemon, or you'll get a certain kind of TM or HM. There's like, not that the original game didn't have quizzes, but there's also date specific quizzes. There's the breeding stuff. There's just so much in these games that make it so enjoyable and so replayable. Crystal was also, as like the counterpart to Yellow, which was updating things from that current gen. It was also the first game that allowed you to choose your player's gender. So you could go from, it was the first game that allowed you to play as a female character, which, as I've heard and read online from some girl players, they were like, that was awesome. That was just really, really awesome. Where it's like, hey, I still enjoyed the games to begin with, but now I had the insert character to a degree looks like me. So it makes it even more enjoyable for them. I cannot recommend these games enough. They are so much fun. And to me, it is the classic example of taking everything that was there upon it and improving. It really was the Arkham City to Arkham Asylum of the late 90s. The Pokemon Johto region would be properly explored in the anime through in episodes 117 through 274 after the Orange Island League adventures, which were a mixed bag. And I'd fallen off the show at that point. But I remember being excited because I was like, Totodile! Because Totodile is dope. And so many of the Pokemon in Johto are some of my favorites. I cannot express just how much I enjoy these games. I know this is a shorter episode. It's just because at this point I'm going to be circling and repeating. Thought I could take longer, but I also don't want to just stretch it out with too much rambling. So, like I said, I know it's a shorter one, but I still hope you enjoyed it. I hope it was a fun nostalgia trip for you. If you get the chance, I really recommend, if you still have your physical Game Boy Color and a cartridge of it, fire up Pokemon Gold and Silver or Crystal. If not, these are absolute freeware, so it's no piracy whatsoever. The way I'm playing it is through the Game Boy emulator Visual Boy Advance. It's a freeware software that doesn't take up much room on your computer, and it's just been a great way to play a game that's not on the PlayStation. And it's been fun to take me back. Also, the soundtrack on the game is dope. I'm going to try to include if I can find it, the surf theme from Gen 2, just because it's actually super charming and relaxing. All that being said, we'll be back with another episode. It'll probably be closer to our longer uh normal format, but it is what it is. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you get the chance, I hope you get the chance to download Visual Boy Advance, and the Game Boy emulators of Gold, Silver, or Crystal. Such a fun game. You won't regret it. It's a great way to relax. And as well, if you get the Game Shark Chiefs and you can put on max repel in areas you're not going to catch new Pokemon, keeps those annoying as heck Zubats away. That being said, I hope you guys have a wonderful day. Hope you enjoyed today's episode. Like I mentioned in the last one, if you want to hear more of me, which why, but also thank you, you can check out my other podcasts, Radio Arcade, which is hosted with my boo Christian, as well as my infrequent wrestling podcast, Power Bombs and Pile Drivers. I hope you all have a wonderful day. Take care, stay safe, and God bless, my friends. Peace!